I never thought my life would split in half on an ordinary Tuesday evening, in the middle of my own kitchen, with nothing more than a glowing screen to trigger it. I never imagined that trust, the thing I always bragged about in my marriage, could shatter without a scream, without an argument, without even a warning sign. Just one small notification sliding across my wife's iPhone, like a whisper I wasn't meant to hear, a glimpse I wasn't meant to see. And yet, here I am, telling you how a single moment destroyed 8 years of my life and left me standing paralyzed, clutching a device I suddenly hated. The phone was Olivia's, of course, my wife. We'd been married for 5 years, together for almost a decade. We met in college, fell in love too quickly according to everyone else, and built a life together that, until that evening, I would have sworn was solid. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our little Sunday rituals that made me feel like we were the kind of couple people envied. And I believed in her. I trusted her so deeply that I never once thought about going through her phone, reading her emails, or second-guessing her late nights. That's not who I was. That's not who we were. But the universe has a cruel sense of humor. Because I didn't even try to look for anything. I wasn't snooping, I wasn't suspicious, I wasn't jealous. I was rinsing out the coffee pot, listening to the hiss of the faucet and the muffled sound of the shower down the hall where Olivia had disappeared minutes earlier. The phone was on the counter, face up. And then it happened. A small banner, so ordinary, so meaningless to anyone else, appeared. Updated, one photo. That's it. That's all it said. Harmless. Innocent. A routine update from the Photos app. I should have ignored it. God knows I wish I had. But the light blinked on the screen, catching in the reflection of the kitchen window, pulling at my eyes. Without thinking, I swiped to clear the notification. Just muscle memory. Just a thoughtless gesture I'd done 1,000 times with my own phone. Except this time, it didn't clear. This time, I saw the thumbnail. And that was the moment everything split into before and after. The thumbnail showed her. Olivia, my wife. I knew the angle of her cheekbone instantly, the tilt of her head, the playful way she always smiled at herself in mirrors. Her hair was falling in damp ribbons over one shoulder. She was beautiful. God, she was always beautiful. And for a second my heart actually lifted in pride. Until I saw it. The hand. A man's hand, broad and strong, gripping her waist like it belonged there. And it wasn't mine. At first, my brain did what brains do when confronted with the impossible. It lied. It whispered that maybe it was a trick of the light. Maybe it was a friend. Maybe it was old. Maybe it was nothing. But my hands were already moving, trembling as I pinched the screen to zoom in. And then I saw the reflection. Just a sliver of a face in the edge of the mirror. Half a profile, but enough. The stubble on his jaw. The shape of his nose. The faint white scar above his eyebrow from when he'd slammed into a diving board when we were 19. Max. My best friend. My brother in everything except blood. The man who had stood beside me at my wedding, grinning like an idiot as he handed me the ring I slid onto Olivia's finger. The guy I trusted with every secret I'd ever had. The one person I never imagined I'd associate with betrayal. And there he was. His face, leaning into my wife's reflection, his hand on her body. The kitchen tilted. The faucet hissed like static in my ears. For a second, I thought I might actually black out. My chest felt like it was locked in a vice, my pulse hammering so violently it made me dizzy. I wanted to put the phone down, to erase the image from my eyes, to smash the damn thing into 1,000 pieces just so it wouldn't exist anymore. But I couldn't. I was rooted there, paralyzed, staring at the bracelet on his wrist. A black leather bracelet with a scratched silver clasp. The same one I had given him 2 years ago, sitting in my backyard with beers in our hands, toasting another year of friendship. He had clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Man, you didn't have to, but I'll wear it every day." And he had. I'd seen that bracelet on his wrist 1,000 times. I'd felt pride every time, thinking it symbolized our bond. Now it was the detail that sealed my ruin, the proof that I wasn't imagining any of this. I whispered to myself, "Stop. Just stop." As if I could rewind time by 5 seconds, back to before I swiped the screen. But it was too late. 5 seconds too late is still too late. And then I pressed and held. The live photo flickered to life. The world shifted again. Olivia's shoulders moved, lifting slightly as if she were stifling a laugh. Max's hand tightened around her waist in a way that made bile rise in my throat. And then, the sound. A soft, low murmur, unmistakable even through the muffled audio. "Don't," Max said, half laughing. And Olivia's whisper, warm and conspiratorial, cut straight through me. "It's fine. He's still at home." At home, meaning me. I staggered back, the counter's edge slamming into my hip hard enough to make my vision spark. The water in the sink had been running this whole time, spilling over my knuckles, but I hadn't even felt it. Now I shut it off, and the silence that followed made the blood in my ears roar like an ocean tide. My name was in her mouth, not as love, not as trust, but as the butt of a secret. Daniel won't know. I wanted to scream. I wanted to march down the hall, rip open the bathroom door, hold the phone in her face, and demand an explanation. I wanted to call Max and make him hear his own voice on speaker, make him admit what he had done. I wanted to run, to pack a bag, to burn the house down, to disappear. All those instincts collided in me like a traffic jam. But something colder, sharper held me in place. Not yet. Not until I knew everything. My eyes darted back to the screen. The timestamp sat at the top. Today, 6:42 p.m. 30 minutes ago. Not old. Not a resurfaced memory. Not a trick. Today. The details fell into place with cruel precision. The background wasn't our bathroom. Ours was small, lined with subway tile. The one in the photo had beveled mirrors, gray marble counters, and a pair of plastic-wrapped cups with a gold H logo stamped on them. I knew that logo. Olivia had shown me a pitch deck last week for a client event at Hotel Hawthorne, a boutique place downtown with black and white decor. I remembered her scrolling through pictures of the bar while sipping coffee, pointing out the monochrome palette she loved. And now I was staring at it. Not in a brochure. Not in a client's marketing material. In a photograph of my wife and my best friend. The bathroom door down the hall clicked as the shower shut off. Steam began to curl into the hallway. Coconut shampoo. Citrus body wash. The scent of Olivia, so familiar it ached. She was humming. Humming. As if nothing in the world had shifted in the last 10 minutes. I placed the phone face down on the counter, braced both hands on the granite, and tried to breathe. My chest hurt. My hands shook. I thought about every small moment over the past few months, reevaluating them with new, poisoned eyes. Olivia's late nights. The way she had started running in the mornings. Her sudden insistence on locking her phone with Face ID only. Max's new jokes with her. The way they sometimes texted memes I wasn't included in. All the things I had dismissed as normal now twisted into barbs. My stomach clenched as I picked the phone up again. I didn't want to. God knows I didn't. But I had to. I needed proof. Evidence. Not just suspicion. I scrolled back in the photo strip. A coffee cup. A blurred hallway. Shoes. Her heels, clicking against patterned tile. Then another pair of shoes stepping into frame, polished Oxfords. And Max's voice, casual, almost bored. "Room 412, right?" Her answer, a whisper. "MHM, don't say the number out loud." I pressed my fist against my mouth to stop the sound that was trying to claw its way out of my chest. I couldn't let her hear me. Not yet. The shower had stopped. She was moving around. Any second now, she would call for a towel, ask me what I wanted for dinner, step back into the kitchen with wet hair and bright eyes as if she hadn't just destroyed me 30 minutes earlier. I stared at the phone in my hand. If I sent the photos to myself, if I made them permanent, I would be the one to make the suspicion real. If I didn't, she could gaslight me, convince me I had misunderstood, erase the evidence, leave me with nothing but a gut feeling and a shattered heart. My thumb hovered over the share button, trembling. My name echoed in my head. Daniel won't know. But I did know, and I couldn't unknow it. The bathroom door creaked open. Steam spilled down the hallway, carrying coconut and citrus and the sound of her voice. "Babe." Olivia called, light and casual, as if the world hadn't collapsed. "Can you bring me a towel? I forgot one." I looked down at the phone, at the photo still glowing there, her smile frozen like a knife. My throat burned. My hands shook. And in that moment, with a towel hanging from the oven handle and my entire life balanced on the edge of a decision, I realized nothing would ever be the same again. When Olivia called for a towel, her voice was as casual and melodic as it had always been. The same voice that had greeted me on sleepy Saturday mornings. The same voice that used to make my stomach flutter when we were first dating. I stood there in the hallway, a towel in one hand, her phone burning in the other, My whole body locked between the urge to storm into the bathroom and the need to keep playing dumb. The smell of coconut shampoo drifted toward me with the steam, wrapping me in memories of hundreds of nights where I'd pressed my face into her hair, breathing that same scent. Now it smelled foreign, corrupted, like a perfume that belonged to someone else entirely. I laid her phone back on the counter face down, forcing myself to let it go before my shaking hands gave me away. Then I carried the towel toward the bathroom door. My reflection in the hall mirror stopped me for a second. I looked pale, hollow-eyed, like a stranger who had slipped into my skin. I took a long breath, smoothed my face, and tried to shove every ounce of fury and despair down into some locked basement inside me. If she suspected that I knew, she'd cover her tracks. She'd delete the photos, call Max, spin some story. No, I couldn't let that happen. I needed her to believe I was still blind. I knocked lightly. "Here," I said, my voice hoarse but hopefully casual. I cracked the door open just enough to slide the towel inside without looking at her. Steam rolled over my arm. I heard her soft laugh. "You're a lifesaver," she said brightly. "What would I do without you?" My chest clenched so hard it hurt. Without me? She already had an answer to that. She'd do just fine, with Max. But I managed to chuckle, a hollow sound. "Don't forget to hang it up after," I muttered and shut the door. Back in the kitchen, I gripped the edge of the counter until my knuckles whitened. The house felt unreal, like a movie set built around me. I could hear her humming again, hear the squeak of the towel rack as she dried her hair. My wife, my beautiful, lying wife, was just 10 feet away, and I had to pretend I was the same man I'd been half an hour ago. She emerged a few minutes later, her hair damp, her skin glowing from the shower, wearing one of my old t-shirts that hung off her shoulder. The sight of her used to fill me with warmth. Now it made me nauseous. I forced my lips into something resembling a smile as she padded barefoot into the kitchen. "Hey, babe," she said, brushing past me to grab a glass from the cabinet. She smelled like coconut and citrus, sweet and familiar. "Hungry? I was thinking we could order Thai. You want Pad See Ew?" My throat tightened. Pad See Ew was Max's favorite, not mine. He used to order it every time we went out, and Olivia always teased him for being predictable. The coincidence sliced at me like glass. "Sure," I croaked. "Thai's fine." She turned, eyes narrowing just slightly. "You okay? You look, I don't know, pale." "I'm fine," I said quickly. Too quickly. I forced a shrug. "Didn't sleep great last night." She studied me for a second longer, then let it go, turning back to the menu drawer. I watched her scroll through her phone, watched her thumbs move across the screen with easy confidence, as if those same hands hadn't just texted Max the room number of a hotel. The betrayal was unbearable, but I bit my tongue until it bled. I needed more. A single photo could be explained away, no matter how damning it looked. She could cry, tell me it wasn't what it seemed, that I was paranoid. But if I waited, if I dug deeper, I could trap her in her own lies. Then there'd be no escape. Dinner came, and we sat across from each other at the small table like we had 1,000 times before. She talked about work, about the vendor who'd messed up a shipment, about the headache of coordinating schedules. She rolled her eyes dramatically, and I even managed to laugh at the right places. Inside, every word scraped at me. Every time she said "we" about her coworkers, I wondered if "we" meant her and Max. Every time her phone buzzed on the table and she glanced down with that half smile, I wondered if his name was lighting up her screen. I chewed and swallowed and smiled, and all the while a storm raged inside me. After dinner, Olivia curled up on the couch with her laptop. I sat next to her, pretending to scroll through emails, my eyes flicking constantly to her screen. She was working on a presentation. Hotel Hawthorne's logo appeared in the corner. My chest burned. Proof was stacking up around me, but I needed more. I needed to see if she'd reach out to him tonight, if she'd slip, if she'd reveal anything that could make denial impossible. When she finally went to bed, I lay awake beside her, staring at the ceiling. Her breathing was slow, steady, peaceful. How could she sleep so soundly, knowing what she'd done? I listened to every shift of her body, every sigh, and felt like I was lying next to a stranger. At one point she rolled over and draped her arm across my chest like she'd done 100 times before. The weight of it felt like a chain. I lay stiff, my eyes wide open, until the early hours of morning. By dawn, I'd made a decision. I couldn't confront her yet, Not without more than photos and guesses. Max had to be part of this. I needed to look him in the eye, to hear his voice, to see if he could lie to me as easily as she had. If he cracked, if he confessed, then everything would be out in the open. If he didn't, then I'd know exactly how deep their betrayal ran. The next morning, I slipped out of bed early under the pretense of a client call. Olivia mumbled something about coffee, then rolled back into the sheets. My stomach twisted at how easily she believed me. I went to the kitchen, grabbed my keys, and sat in the car with my hands on the wheel, staring at the rising sun. Max's number was on my phone screen. My thumb hovered over it, shaking. I hadn't called him this early in years. I forced myself to breathe and press dial. It rang twice before he picked up. His voice was groggy, thick with sleep. "Daniel? Everything okay?" I swallowed hard. "Yeah, just thought maybe we could grab a coffee later. Catch up." There was a pause. Too long of a pause. Then, yeah, sure. "What time?" 10, I said. "The cafe by the river." "All right," he said, voice tighter now. "See you then." I hung up and stared at the screen. My reflection in the black glass looked like someone else's. Hard, grim, hollow. This was it. Today, I would look Max in the eye and see the truth. And if he lied, then God help both of them, because I wasn't sure what kind of man I'd become once I heard it. I sat in my car outside the cafe by the river, fingers drumming on the steering wheel, trying to steady my breathing. The place was quiet this early in the morning, just a handful of commuters rushing past with paper cups and laptops slung over their shoulders. The smell of roasted beans drifted out every time the door opened. Normally, I loved this cafe. It was where Olivia and I had come on lazy Sundays, sipping lattes while watching the water shimmer. Now it felt like the stage for an execution. My execution, maybe. Or Max's. When he arrived, I spotted him instantly. Same walk, same casual hoodie over a plain t-shirt, his hair slightly disheveled, as if he'd rolled out of bed without a care in the world. But I watched his eyes. They scanned the street a little too quickly, like he was expecting something. Or someone. My stomach twisted. Did he think Olivia would be here? Did he think she'd meet him after? "Daniel," he called, smiling wide. Too wide. He crossed the street and clapped me on the back the way he always did, the same brotherly gesture that once brought me comfort. This time it felt rehearsed, practiced, like a mask he was sliding on. "Man, it's been a minute. How are you?" I forced a smile. "I'm all right. Just needed to talk, you know? Been a while." My voice was steady, but inside every nerve was screaming. We grabbed a table by the window. The river glimmered outside, sunlight bouncing off ripples, a cruel reminder that the world was still beautiful while mine was unraveling. Max leaned back, draping his arm over the back of his chair, too relaxed, too at ease. He asked about my work, about a project I'd mentioned months ago. I answered automatically, words spilling out while my brain screamed at me to look closer, to catch the cracks. Finally, I leaned forward. "So what's new with you? Anything interesting lately?" He shrugged. "Same old. Work, gym, sleep, repeat. You know me." I studied his face. The casual tone, the slight smirk. But his foot tapped under the table, a restless rhythm. He was lying. I could feel it in my bones. "Yeah," I said slowly. "Though I heard you were spending more time downtown these days. Hotel Hawthorne, right? That's what Olivia said." The name landed like a stone in water. A flicker crossed his eyes, gone in a second, but I saw it. He reached for his coffee too quickly, nearly sloshing it. "Oh yeah? Went there once, met a client. Place is overpriced. Not really my scene." My fists clenched under the table. I wanted to slam the phone down right there, play the photo, force him to choke on his own lies. But I stayed still. Not yet. Let him sweat. Let him keep weaving his rope. "Funny," I said lightly. "Because she mentioned you really liked it. Thought maybe you'd go back." Another flicker. His smirk faltered, then returned. "Maybe. Nice cocktails, I guess." I leaned back, pretending to relax. "You and Olivia seem to talk a lot these days. She's always laughing at something you send her." Max chuckled, though it sounded hollow. "Hey, man, don't get jealous. You know me. I joke with everyone. She's like a sister to me." Sister. The word curdled in my gut. I saw her smile in that photo, the tilt of her head, the way his hand fit her waist. No brother touched a sister like that. I bit down hard on the inside of my cheek to keep from snapping. I wanted him to dig himself deeper, to bury himself in excuses. We talked for another half hour, circling nothing, him pretending everything was normal, me cataloging every twitch, every restless shift of his eyes. My patience was running thin. Finally, I leaned in, my voice low. Max, you'd tell me if something was going on, right? Between you and Olivia. His eyes widened, just slightly. His mouth opened, then closed. He laughed, shaking his head. Man, what? No. Jesus. Where is this coming from? You think I'd do that to you? I held his gaze. For a moment, the world went silent around us. And in that silence, his eyes betrayed him. He looked away first. He took a sip of coffee he didn't need. His fingers tightened on the cup. All the answers I needed were in that single hesitation. I nodded slowly, forcing a smile. Yeah, you're right. Just making sure. I stood, tossing some bills on the table. Good to catch up. He smiled, too wide again. Always, brother. But as I walked out into the sunlight, the weight of his lies pressed down on me. I knew it as surely as I knew my own name. He hadn't confessed, but he didn't need to. The truth was in the way he couldn't look me in the eye, the way his body betrayed him even as his mouth spun denials. Back in my car, I pulled out Olivia's phone again. I'd taken the risk last night, airdropped the photos to my laptop while she slept, keeping them hidden. Now I had them. Now she couldn't erase them, couldn't spin them away. Proof. Evidence. And with Max's face still burned into my mind, I knew the time was coming. I couldn't stay silent much longer. My hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white. The path ahead was brutal, but unavoidable. I would confront her. Soon. And when I did, everything we had, our marriage, our home, our future, would either collapse completely or explode into something unrecognizable. There was no going back. And for the first time, I wasn't sure which outcome I wanted more. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked exactly the same as it had that morning, but it no longer felt like home. The pale siding, the front porch light still buzzing faintly even though the sun was high, the curtain in the kitchen window fluttering in the breeze. All of it looked ordinary to anyone else. To me, it was the shell of a life I wasn't sure belonged to me anymore. My chest tightened as I killed the engine and sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my fingers ached. The conversation with Max kept looping in my head, every flicker of his eyes, every hesitation, every too quick laugh. He had lied. I knew it. And Olivia, my Olivia, was at the center of that lie. I stepped inside. The familiar smell of coffee and lemon cleaner hit me, but instead of comfort, it made me sick. Olivia was in the living room, curled up with her laptop, hair tied back in a messy bun, wearing leggings and a hoodie like it was any normal day. She looked up when she heard me, her eyes bright. Hey, you're back early. How was your meeting? Meeting. The word almost made me laugh. If only she knew where I had been, who I had been sitting across from, dissecting every twitch of his face. I forced a smile. It was fine. Just grabbed a coffee, talked shop. My voice sounded steady, even though my insides were trembling. She nodded and turned back to her screen. Good. I've got a ton of work to finish before tomorrow's pitch. The Hawthorne event is stressing me out. The name hit me like a slap. Hotel Hawthorne. She said it so casually, like it was just another client, not the scene of my humiliation. My nails dug crescents into my palms. Yeah, I said softly. I bet. All afternoon, I hovered around her like a ghost, moving through the motions of normalcy while my head screamed. I answered emails, pretended to review designs, even made us both sandwiches for lunch. Every time she smiled at me, every time her hand brushed mine, it felt like acid. I watched her laugh at something on her phone, tilting the screen away from me instinctively, and my blood ran cold. Was it him? Was she texting Max right under my nose, while I spread mustard on her bread? By evening, the weight of it had become unbearable. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the folder on my laptop where the photos now lived. Proof. Evidence she couldn't erase. My finger hovered over the trackpad. I imagined showing her, watching the color drain from her face, listening to the excuses collapse in her throat. Part of me craved it, wanted to rip the truth out of her with surgical precision. Another part of me was terrified of the moment her mask would fall away forever. Dinner? She called from the living room. I could make pasta if you want. Pasta. Our comfort food. The meal she always made after long days, when we wanted to curl up on the couch and forget the world. The idea of twirling noodles with her, pretending we were still us, made me want to scream. But my voice came out calm. Sure, pasta sounds good. She hummed happily, moving around the kitchen. The clatter of pots and pans, the hiss of boiling water, it all sounded normal. Too normal. My chest ached with the weight of how easily she could play this part, how seamlessly she could flip between worlds. I sat there, watching her chop vegetables, and wondered how many times she had stood in another kitchen, chopping for Max, laughing with him, giving him pieces of herself that used to belong only to me. When she set the plate in front of me, she leaned down to kiss my temple. My skin crawled. There you go, she said warmly. Eat up. I forked the pasta mechanically, the taste of garlic and basil turning to ash in my mouth. I looked at her across the table, her hair falling loose from her bun, her eyes tired but soft. She looked like my wife. She sounded like my wife. But I couldn't stop seeing the reflection in that mirror, the tilt of her smile, Max's hand on her waist. Every time I blinked, it was there. Halfway through the meal, I finally spoke. Liv. She glanced up. Yeah. I swallowed hard. Do you ever feel like we're drifting? Like maybe you're keeping things from me? Her fork paused midair. She blinked, then laughed nervously. What? No. Where's that coming from? I shrugged, forcing my expression into something neutral. Just a thought. We've both been busy. Long nights, different schedules. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I don't see you as much as I used to. Her face softened, and for a second I almost believed her. Oh, babe. I know it's been crazy. Work's been nonstop. But it's just a phase. You know you're the most important thing to me, right? The words slid across the table like poison. Most important thing. As if Max was just a hobby? My jaw tightened, but I nodded. Yeah, sure. We finished dinner in silence. She cleaned up while I sat there, my stomach churning, my heart pounding against my ribs like a fist. I couldn't do this much longer. I couldn't smile, couldn't nod, couldn't swallow the lies. The images on my laptop burned behind my eyes. Her voice from that Liv photo echoed in my ears. Asterisk, it's fine. He's still at home. Asterisk. At home. I was the fool in the wings while they played their scene. When she finally went upstairs to shower again, I stayed at the table, staring at my laptop. I opened the folder. The photos glowed on the screen, each one a dagger. My hands shook as I enlarged the mirror shot. Olivia's smile, Max's hand, the bracelet. Undeniable. Incontrovertible. No explanation in the world could make it innocent. I heard the pipes groan upstairs, the shower running. Steam would soon fill the hall again, that same sweet smell trailing down, mocking me. My reflection stared back from the black edges of the screen, hollow, furious, exhausted. A man about to tear his own world apart. This was it. No more pretending. No more waiting. I would confront her tonight, once and for all. And whatever happened after would be the end of the life I thought I had. I heard the water stop like a sentence cut mid-word. Pipes groaned behind the wall. A beat later came the soft skitter of the shower curtain rings and the sound of her bare feet on tile. I closed the laptop and set it gently on the table, palms pressed flat against the wood to keep them from shaking. This is it, I thought. No more rehearsals. No more practicing lines alone in the kitchen. Either I get the truth now, or I live the rest of my life pretending I don't already know it. Babe? Olivia called, voice light. Where did I put my brush? In the drawer by the sink. I answered, surprised by how even I sounded. The steadiness wasn't calm. It was the stillness before a building collapses. A minute later, she padded down the hall in a robe, towel-damp hair falling in dark waves around her face. She looked fresh, unburdened, the steam chasing her like a halo. She smiled when she saw me at the table. Hey, you look serious. Everything okay? Sit, I said. I didn't mean for it to come out as an order. But it did, and she paused, searching my face for a clue, then took the chair across from me. The same chair where she'd eaten pasta an hour ago. The same chair where she had laughed at something on her phone that I couldn't see. What's going on? She asked, softer now. You're scaring me. I slid the laptop closer, opened the folder without flourish, and brought up the photo. The bevel of the mirror caught the light. Her face, tilted. The man's hand, firm around her waist. The bracelet's silver clasp, scratched the way I knew it was scratched because I chose it. I didn't look at her. I watched the image as if it might change. She drew a breath. It caught halfway in her throat. Daniel. I pressed and held. The live photo stuttered alive, her shoulder rising like laughter, the tightening of his fingers, and that small, damning line, barely a breath. It's fine. He's still at home. Then his voice, warm and low. For you. I released the screen and finally looked at her. The blood had drained from her face. Her lips parted, closed, parted again. Tears didn't come. Not yet. She looked less like a person about to cry and more like a chess player who has just seen, too late, the checkmate on the board. When? I asked. Not a shout. Not a plea. Just a question that opened like a trapdoor. She swallowed. Her eyes flicked to the laptop and away. It's not. Daniel, it's not what it looks like. A laugh scraped out of me before I could stop it. It sounded wrong in my own ears. It's exactly what it looks like. She closed her eyes, exhaled, opened them again. It was a mistake. How many times did you make it? Her gaze dropped to her hands, fingers twisting the edge of the robe belt. Twice, she whispered. A few weeks ago, and then again, yesterday. The word yesterday hit me like an open hand. My vision wavered. The edges of the room blurred for a second and then snapped back into place, too sharp. Hotel Hawthorne, I said. Room 412. Her head jerked up. The look in her eyes, shock, told me the rest. She hadn't expected me to know the number. She hadn't expected, maybe, for me to do anything but rage. How? I heard it, I said. On your precious live photo. I tapped the trackpad, bringing up the other clip. Heels on patterned tile, the polished Oxfords, the careless murmur of a man who thought he was safe. Room 412, right? I don't need you to explain the decor. I know the logo on the cups. She reached out as if to close the laptop. I slid it just out of reach and her hand fell back, limp. Silence pooled between us, thick and heavy. He kissed me first, she said finally, voice trembling. After the site visit. We were both strung out. It felt easy. She winced at her own word. I'm not excusing it. I swear to God I'm not. I'm just telling you what happened. You're telling me the version where somehow the physics of the universe made you fall on each other, I said. Try again. Hurt flashed across her face, quick as a match. Do you want the ugly version? Fine. I wanted to feel wanted. You've been somewhere else lately. Work, your screens, your... She caught herself, swallowed. That's not your fault. It's just, I made something unforgivable out of a loneliness that wasn't even real. You didn't feel lonely last night, I said. You felt mischievous. I mimicked her whisper without meaning to. Just one. For me. You smiled for the camera. She flinched. I know what I did, she said, and her voice broke, the first crack in the mask. I hate myself for it. Do you? I asked. Or do you hate being caught? Her hands pressed to her eyes for a second and then dragged down her face. When she looked at me again, the practiced explanations were gone. I should have told you the first time, she said. I told myself I would. I told him I would. And then I woke up next to you, and you made coffee, and you kissed my shoulder, and I thought if I just pretended hard enough, I could bury it, and it would never touch the life we built. She laughed, a hollow, devastated sound. It touched everything anyway. How long would you have kept burying it if the notification hadn't popped up? I asked. Another week? Month? Until the next hotel? No more hotels, she said quickly, desperate. I ended it yesterday. I told him. I met him this morning, I said. The room changed temperature. She went still in a way I had only seen a few times, when a client called with a disaster, when a car missed us by inches at an intersection. You what? Coffee, I said. By the river. I wanted to see if he could lie to my face. I held her gaze. He can. She absorbed that like a blow. The tears didn't fall. They gathered in the corners and held on, as if letting them drop would commit the scene to permanence. What did you want him to say? She whispered. Would it have mattered? It would have mattered to me, I said. Hearing if the only other person who promised to have my back would stab it cleanly or twist the knife while he smiled. She wiped at her eyes with the heel of her hand and nodded, a shaky little motion. I deserve that. You deserve a lot of things you're not going to like, I said. I heard my own voice and didn't recognize it. Calm. Occupational. I could have been walking a client through a scope change. Here's what's going to happen. First, you call him. Put it on speaker. Her breath hitched. Daniel. Now. She stared at me for a long second, then reached for her phone. Her fingers hovered, then dialed. The line rang once, twice. Hey. Max answered, voice too bright. What's up? Olivia looked at me. I tilted the laptop so the photo faced her and the sound faced the room. You're on speaker, she said, quiet. I'm with Daniel. Silence. Then a soft curse, barely audible. Olivia. Tell him, she said, eyes on mine. Tell him it happened. I listened to the tiny sounds on his end, the scrape of a chair, the exhale of a man calculating. Then, Daniel, man. I don't know what she. Don't, I said. The single word stopped him. Lie later. Not now. Another beat. Then Max's voice, smaller than I'd ever heard it. It happened, he said. Twice. He swallowed. I'm sorry. The apology hung in the air like a bad smell. It wasn't for me. It was for himself. A balm he could rub on the part of him that still thought of himself as a good man. When? I asked, though I already knew. He gave the dates. The first match the night Olivia had come home with a new bottle of wine and a blush she'd blamed on the cold. The second matched yesterday's timestamp. Did you plan to tell me? I asked. I told her to, he said. We agreed. No, Olivia said, pressing the phone tighter to the table. You told me we could keep it quiet, that it didn't have to blow up anything if we were careful. I watched the messy truth spill uncoached. Max made a strangled sound. Liv. I ended the call. The silence that followed felt clean for a heartbeat, like a room after a window is opened. Then reality flooded back, heavy and humid. Thank you, I said. It surprised both of us. For what? She asked dully. For proving I'm not crazy, I said. For saying it out loud where we both had to hear it. She nodded, hands trembling. What do you want me to do? It was the most honest question of the night. Not why are you doing this to me? Not we can move past it. Just a naked request for instruction from the man she had betrayed. I didn't take any pleasure in it. There was none to take. You're going to pack a bag, I said. You're going to stay at your sister's for a week. No contact with him. None. If I see even a notification with his name on it while you're gone, we're done, and the next time I say your name it will be to a lawyer. She nodded again, tears finally breaking free and streaking down her cheeks. Okay. During that week, I continued, I'm going to think about whether there's anything here worth trying to save. I'm going to make an appointment with a therapist. If we try. If we do it with someone who can referee, because I don't trust either of us to keep our hands off the detonator without help. I swallowed. And I'm going to tell my parents. I won't lie for you. Her face crumpled. I never asked you to. No, I said. But you were fine with me living in a lie as long as it was convenient. She started to say something and then stopped. The robe's belt fell loose. She tightened it with clumsy fingers, as if her whole body were trying to hold itself together by a knot. He was your best friend, she said, voice raw. I know what that means. I know I broke something I can't fix. If you can't ever forgive me, I'll leave. I won't fight you. The quiet that followed wasn't mercy, and it wasn't punishment. It was simply the space left after a bomb goes off, where you can hear the settling of dust. I don't know about forgiveness, I said. I don't know anything right now except that I can't look at you and see my wife. All I can see is that photo. She stood, swayed, and then steadied. I'll pack, she whispered. She disappeared down the hall. The drawer in our bedroom opened. A suitcase rasped along the floor. I sat at the table and stared at the image on the laptop until my eyes watered. Then I closed it and stood, walking to the mantel where our wedding photo leaned between two candles she'd bought at a holiday market. In the picture, Max stood behind me in a tux, one hand on my shoulder, grinning. Olivia had been radiant, her head tipped toward me, her eyes bright with a future we both believed in. I took the frame down and turned it face first against the wall. When she reappeared, suitcase in hand, she stopped in the doorway and looked at me like she was trying to memorize me. Do you want me to text when I get there? She asked. Yes, I said. But don't say anything except that you arrived. She nodded. At the door, she hesitated. Daniel, she swallowed. I loved you. I love you. The verb tense lodged like a fishbone. I said nothing. She stepped outside. The door closed with the soft, ordinary sound of a latch catching. I stood in the middle of the living room and listened to the house. The hum of the refrigerator. The faint traffic on the street. My breath, uneven. I walked to the sink and ran the water, letting the cold pour over my wrists until the burn subsided. Then I dried my hands, sat, and opened a new note on my laptop. A list. Practical, stupid, necessary. Cancel streaming accounts tied to her email. Separate bills. Gather tax documents. Find a therapist. Tell my sister. Change the spare key's hiding place. Take the bracelet I'd bought Max and put it in a drawer I wouldn't open for a while. I wrote each item slowly, as if by itemizing the wreckage I could keep it from swallowing me. When the text came, asterisk, I'm here, asterisk, I stared at the two words until they blurred. I typed back, okay, and set the phone face down. The night stretched long and quiet. I didn't sleep. I sat by the window and watched the dark river of the street flow by. Headlights, then nothing, then headlights again. Somewhere out there, Max's apartment existed, a geography problem I didn't care to solve. Somewhere else, Olivia lay in a bed without me for the first time in years, and maybe she cried, and maybe she didn't. Dawn thinned the dark. I made coffee and stood at the counter where the world had split open the night before. Steam curled up from the mug. The house looked the same. It wasn't. I don't know what I'll do next. Maybe we'll sit in a therapist's office and map the crater and decide whether anything can grow in it. Maybe I'll file papers and learn the choreography of disentangling two lives that once moved like a single body. Maybe I'll call Max and say nothing and hang up, because there's nothing left to say that won't make me smaller. Here's the part one keep turning over in my hands like a shard. If the betrayal had been anyone else, any stranger with a forgettable face, would that change the math? Is betrayal measured by the act, or by the person who carries it out? If your spouse betrays you with your best friend, the one who stood at your shoulder in the brightest moment of your life, can anything that comes after ever be clean? I don't have the answer. I only have the question. And for now, that's what I'm living with.